Good morning everybody and welcome back to another custom set video where today we are taking a look at a custom set based off the newest game in the Zelda franchise. Today is Z097. We have 994 pieces. This is the Southern Still World from Echoes of Wisdom, which currently looks like a normal piece of terrain, but I have a twist in store for you because when we activate our rifts, well, our model can display itself in the Rift version and be transformed between the two by removing these different elements and sticking them to make your own custom Rift version. And to be honest, I'm pretty pleased with this feature. As a general word of mouth, this video contains no spoilers past the first dungeon of Echoes of Wisdom, so if you're still waiting to play the game, don't worry, we won't be spoiling anything too major or that hasn't been seen by early release footage and, well, just within the first hour of the game. So you're all good, and we have 10 figures to take a look at today for this set, which is ages 8 and up with 994 pieces, retailing for $89.99 Great British pounds, 5 figures and 8 brick built characters, but 3 of those are of course Try's Little Friends and 2 Zols as well. So some heavy duplicates in this set, quite sort of almost a centerpiece. Let's read the quick description before we open the box up. The Rifts have come to Hyrule in the all-new LEGO Legend of Zelda playset from Echoes of Wisdom. Explore the fields of Southern Prairie and enter the dungeon to take on Ganon. Get upgrades from Blueberry and search for treasure. Rearrange the set to recreate a dangerous rift and place Echoes to traverse the unusual landscape where nothing is as it seems. Look for the 3 secret containers where Try's friends are hidden to return the world to normal. Rebuild again and again for unique experiences inspiring your child's creativity. And that's right, this rift can be constructed in multiple different ways, but we'll take a look at all the modules up close as well as those secret containers and echoes that are included in just a second. And if we open up the box, we reveal 10 numbered bags and 1 large instruction manual that does everything, although really this one should be a group build. Inside that instruction manual, we will see that Bad One does all of our accessories, including all of the echoes, well, a fair few of them anyway, as well as your hooded Zelda and Try. Bag 2 gives you 2 Zols and builds up the main sort of structure, which is what actually allows you to rotate this 90 degrees onto its side for the other variation of the model. And bag 3 finishes that off and also gives you the Deku Baba Echo. Bag 4 builds the representation of the Southern Ruins dungeon, as well as giving you Evil Link and the first of Try's friends, meaning this is the location of one of the Try containers. Bag 5 builds this ramp and gives us the Spear Moblin level 1, and bag 6 builds this other bit of terrain. Again, lots of terrain builds in this set, but this one has an interesting cutaway with a pond. Bag 7 has another little cutaway where again there's another Try compartment, and then also gives us their level 1 Dark Nut. Again, all these enemies feature in those early dungeons. And bag 8 does a little square of terrain, very, very tiny, and then does all of these accessories for you to decorate. So these pillars and trees, which I'm really pleased with, as well as a couple of flowers. Bag 9 does Luberry's house, bit of a big bag here, gives you the 3rd Try and of course the Luberry figure. And then bag 10 is a character bag build, very similar to almost to Bowser's Castles, where, well, it's Ganon here in his Echoes of Wisdom appearance, which I'm very pleased with how he turned out. So that is the entire set's breakdown. So let's take a look at all of those features and different modules in closer detail. So first up, before I show you everything, I wanted to once again give you this image here. This is the image on the front of the box that shows an ideal version of what you could turn this into in Rift form, where you can see that everything comes apart. Specifically, Luberry's house has been split on 2. You've got one part that's upside down and one part that's on the side. We've rearranged the different blocks and sort of given them support. And I also want to point out that some of you may be questioning, well, could this stand up? Is this structurally stable? And my answer to you is yes. And I'm not claiming that based off testing the studio stability feature, because we all know that's utter trash. But if you look at what modules are actually here, you can see that anything that's overhanging is supported by something on the floor. Now, could you lift this model up in one go? Unlikely. I do reckon it would probably fall apart if you lift it, but this wouldn't be the first LEGO set that sort of doesn't quite transport as well, and all of the modules would be fine. It's just if you put it in a combination, you don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, you've got pillars on the side. We've got a little spider here who's wriggling up the wall. If we turn it around the back, these interior rooms are also on their side, kind of creating a towering platform challenge, which of course you could use the echoes included in the set, which we'll take a look at in a minute, to traverse and jump around in different ways, which I'm hoping I'm showing you on screen. You can place the enemies everywhere, and also I want to point out this angled piece here is when you start off with the model flat, it is also in line here, but when you remove the blocks underneath, you can actually turn it to a 45 degree, either facing right or then facing left to have it in 2 different positions. So that module is incredibly versatile, along with of course the house being able to be split in 2 and sort of placed around to really show the disjunction between all these different modules. On top, instead of having it placed in the middle, there are these studs on the side, which you can see in normal terrain version, and this is where we've put the Sutherland's Ruin module. Obviously it's been incredibly shrunken, but we'll talk about it later. But again, it's just supposed to give you the image. And I also do really like that in this form you can put ganon on the top, because I think it makes it look ominous and almost like you're doing a tower climb like Donkey Kong in order to reach him, which I think is an interesting way to display the set and looks quite powerful as well, which I do enjoy. Now, there are plenty of interior details and extra little things to take a look at, but I do want to just highlight how these things connect together. Every module in its normal form has studs built into the side using some snot techniques, so that on one side you have positive studs and on one side you have anti-studs. This is particularly true here, where you can see that not only have I attached different modules to them, but you've also got a spider that is being attached to the side. So these studs are useful for echo placement and also for terrain placement, which I think is important. Of course, we've got the swivel thing, which you can see can go around here, and on the side in this form you can actually see that these 3 platforms can be taken off. So if you wanted to, you could have just a sheer green wall, but in this model here we've attached some different ones. Now, there is also customizability options when you're in sort of the normal world as well. Like before, this is in a rift, so you don't have to do the terrain shown on box. Here is just one alternate version of that, which you can see the pillars have moved, the trees have moved, and Lubri's house as well. Again, this is just a complete shake-up of where the terrain goes, but yeah, you've got options, which I think is really nice. And of course, even more if you choose to get creative with it, but I'm not going to show you infinite number of options. In fact, I want to take a close-up look at our main model version in the normal world and show you all those details up close. So starting with our side build, Lubri's house, this is built on 2 sections here, which actually connect together in the middle, as I've talked about before. The outside is recreating the Link's Awakening house style in questionable detail. We've got the wooden paneling on the side, as long as the red sills under the windowsill, which are accurate to the game. I chose to use the lattices in black to be the closest thing to represent the windows, and you've also got a symbolization of the wooden arch above his door. We've also got the wooden posts outside, and this is the one tree that isn't actually like on a jumper plate or easily removable. It's actually using the Animal Crossing tree piece at the base, which I think is a perfect fit for the Link's Awakening trees. They're a very similar style, very similar engine, like kind of looking thing. And then you've got these rounded elements to kind of create the layered bushing effect, which I'm actually really proud of. And you've got a stud on top, so you could always place a figure. Specifically, of course, the house comes to a peak, either house using this sort of hay technique here, which is so very crudely represented, and it is mostly a sloped roof, just with some clips and leaf elements on to kind of create the thatched experience, but keeping it at a lower age range for younger builders. Around the back of the house, we do have a subtle, a full interior, but very simple. On one side, we have the forge, which is something you can use to do some upgrades in the game. And this is here with this big green arch piece, and that pretty much takes up one side. So again, a little bit of play there, but not really. And on the other side, you've got some crates and different things. You've got a crate full of weapons. For those of you that play the game in the early stages, you know what that's representing and what Lubri's job is. And of course, some tools for him to operate his forge. And then around the back, actually, you've got this oven container, which is strategically important, even though you might just think that it is just here for no real reason. This is actually one of the hidden Tri containers. So when you enter a rift in the game, your goal is to find Tri's friend in order to mend the rift, and these guys are hidden in these like purple energy balls. We recreated that feature here in the set by placing this Technic ball element with some printing. It's the same printing for all 3 because that's not in the budget, in 3 different locations. Specifically, we have one here in Lubri's house, which is inside this oven if you open it up. We also have this one under this rock on the terrain out front, and then our third one is up in the temple, which we'll take a look at later on. So no other details on the interior. The biggest thing here is that the house looks good, will fit in with the other Link's Awakening houses when we get around to them, and of course can split in half with a very subtle seam and then be placed anywhere in rift form. Again, it's all about the customizability of the setup. As we move up the terrain, of course, we've got this very simple slope, lots of studs here for you to place characters and figures. This could be where enemies are different and different types of fighting. We've got these white flowers, which again you can put anywhere, but really it was important to have a slope module because this could be useful for both variations, and you could of course turn this on its side and have it be a very steep slope in Rift version as well. But yeah, nice and simple, a little bit of flat, a little bit of slope, fairly basic. That brings us up to 2 terrain platforms. I really tried to make these as interesting as possible. One of them houses the second Tri feature like we talked about earlier, and one of them's got some more space for figures where we've got the tree build and then also the first of our 2 pedestals. Here I've chosen to place the spider on top, but you could also place any of the sets included enemies on these pedestals to represent them either going down or hiding out of reach, so that you've got to use your echoes and abilities to sort of platform up to them. So I also really like the pillar design. It reminds me of Link to the Past, so I think that's a really interesting one as well. And you can see here how these modules sort of connect underneath the spinning platform. One interesting detail of the back sort of section, the big tall one, which is what gives the model its height in rift form, is the use of snot building techniques to create a bit of texture. I really didn't want to just have a plain medium nougat wall like we do all the way along the front, which is obviously slightly aided by the dark orange colouring, but I've actually recolored the Mario piece again, and I'm actually really fond of using this piece for rock work. It's the 6x6 plate that they used for ice in the Ice World Mario sets, and it does kind of have a more subtle rocky texture. So this has been recolored for this set into medium nougat, which you can see here, and has been placed on its side 3 times using snot building to give the wall a bit of a cracky texture, and it's kind of very subtle looking, at least in this image, but it works out really well and I quite like it, and I think in real life instead of a render it would look a little bit more dominant as well. Now, before we take a look any further, I want to quickly highlight the echoes that I've been talking about you being able to use to traverse across this set. Firstly, we have the pots, which are actually featured inside the southern ruins at the top. Of course, this is an echo that you can use to smash and distract enemies and of course to deal damage. You get 2 of them in the set, which are using a recolored BB-8 bottle as well as the upside down stamp piece. Technically, of course, you have the spider here to represent the cruel tiller or the wall tiller. Again, common in the dungeon, but also in the terrain around the southern prairie. So makes a lot of sense to have here, as well as spiders just being kind of spooky and cool. We've got the wooden box, which actually can smash open, and inside we've got some smoothie ingredients. Specifically, we've got electro apples and then the berries, which I've forgotten the name of, but yeah, you've got space to put 2 of those in here and hide them in different places. You could also, of course, put them in the chests included in the set. We have a trampoline too, again, another very early game echo that's very important, and this is sort of built kind of questionably, but oh well, it turned out well and I really like how it looks. We've also got the table. You'll notice this one has a transparent brick underneath. This has been done deliberately so that the middle is actually touching the floor instead of the legs, meaning this is easier to detach and won't leave the legs behind. The same is true for the bed, which is again very simply built on a 6x4 base with some 2x4 tiles to represent the ridges at either end. You've got the pillow, which is a 2x3 tile raised up above it, and again very simple, and again raised off the ground using a transparent brick so that it never comes into contact with more than those middle studs, meaning it's really easy to detach and remove. And then the last main echo that isn't just an enemy is of course the boulders here, which of course can split in 2 and you can put stuff inside, but yeah, just a boulder and rock that you can throw around. Again, it's a fun Lego piece to work with, so it works out quite nicely. But yeah, in all the other ones, we have, well, the enemies in a sense. So we've got the 2 Zols and the Baba and the Spear Moblin and the Dark Nut, and then of ganon as well, but I suppose he doesn't really count. Anyway, but that's just the character list. So let's go on to talking about the interior and the other rooms we've got left. Specifically over on the far right, we have the pond here. Again, another very simple terrain. Again, everything looks plain in these images because you've got to remember you're adding the trees and the columns and the flowers around, and of course you're posing figures, which makes things much busier. The pond itself is built with a panel on its side and then is just nicely surrounded by these various different shaped blue plates. And then underneath we have a little cavern which you can imagine you're swimming into, and there's a chest underneath. And as I said, you can place whatever you like in the chest, but here we've put some more of the berries and smoothie ingredients, which will tie into a future set, of course, something that's perfect for a poly bag, which sort of just leaves us with the main module here. Now, I've already talked about how this is decorated and the swervy thing on the outside, so really I'm only interested in showing you the back, which is actually where I started this build, and I'm really pleased with how compact and solid this build is. It's split into 3 main sections. It's nice and structural with the arches, so it's going to be a little bit fiddly to play with. It is open on one end, which is the end that becomes the bottom when you turn it on its side, and the other end has some studs which actually allow you to place the temple bit on top, which is a room we'll get to in a minute. Now, these 3 rooms are mostly empty, admittedly. We've got a spot over on the left with a 2x2 jumper to put the Baba as if he's living in a dungeon room, which is actually something you find down there. And there are some torches on the wall giving you some different echo options for defeating them. Around the middle, we've got a treasure chest, which could just be open, but I've also decided to put a Dark Knight in front of it. And you'll also notice that there are these blue recolors of the gem piece. This is actually a color that already exists, I believe. But yeah, this gem piece in blue here on the floor, which is supposed to represent the energy that you acquire and see floating around the rifts, so looking a little bit spooky there. And then over on the right, I've left it empty. This is either for echo placement or for enemies. So you can see we've got the villainous version of Link here over on the far right hand side, which we'll talk about in just a second. Which then leaves us with the last temple room, which is the interior here behind the Dark Tan Southern Temple. As I already mentioned, it's small, it's cheapified, and it just is kind of cute looking, almost in a weird way. But all the details have been shrunken down. This is accurate to the temple, but it is what it is. There's a very, very small entrance and then one room on the inside, just enough room for the 2 pots either side of the snot walls. And then in the floor, you have this mural thing, which is seen in a couple of the trailers. It doesn't really actually have any specific lore importance, actually, which I find not funny, but it would probably have a sticker with some of the dashes and dot lines, which seem to be the ancient language in this game. Not that I know, because I haven't finished it yet, so no spoilers, please. And then on either side of this thing, you've got the pots, but actually you can lift up this mural here to reveal the 3rd container where we put Tri's friend. So again, this is like, you could almost imagine this is either a reward for defeating the mini-boss, either being Link, or you just have to find it here and it moves out of the way like any other sliding Zelda thing. And I actually really like how this is built out the crate to give it easy detaching things and also a big enough space to fit Tri's friends as well, which I think is cool. So that's all 3 Tri friend locations, and this is actually the last room. I've already showed you a numerous couple of different ways that it is rearranged, so without further ado, I think we take a look at another big drawing point for this set, and that is the 10 different characters. First up, we'll start off with our main protagonist this time, and we have Zelda in her disguise. No, she does not come with an alternate hairpiece, as at this point in the story, she is wearing the hood up for a reason. So she has a cape, and of course the hood piece in blue, exactly the same as the Hylian hood from ages ago. She has her version of the Tri-Rod, which is built with a 3-lung bar and a cone in light yellow. She has a sort of screaming facial expression, kind of like her main box art, and then her very simple printing. Again, these classic games having very simple outfits, and we're using lavender because that pinkish color really doesn't exist in the Lego palette. Of course, she is going to be joined by her usual partner in crime here, being Link. However, in this version, he is in his Link's Awakening outfit, which you'll be seeing in normal Link's Awakening faces, sets, but he has an alternate face print, and it is explicitly this is an alternate face, so that if you had young kids that just don't want him to be evil all the time, you have a normal face on one side, and then you have his evil face on the other to represent when he is an Echo in this version of the game. And he's got his purple eyes. I've kind of taken a little bit of liberties with it, just to make it look a little bit more spooky. Like, he doesn't usually have these markings on his face until he goes into a second form where he's all purple, but I really wanted this figure to still be usable for people that just want a normal Toon Link, because as I said, there is one coming in a set that comes out before this set in a sense, but in a Wave 5 set, but I really wanted to make sure that this figure was still usable both ways, so that's why there's no Echo like swirly printing on his torso or anything. I wanted the figure to be usable. Into enemies, we have the Spear Moblin, which is actually using the actually common in the fan community redone version of Pigsy's head, which has just been recolored into dark orange and given some Moblin printing. I'm actually really pleased with how that part turns out. It does work incredibly well. Most of the characters in this set are actually using mid legs to make them shorter, like the toy aesthetic, and this guy is holding a full length spear, which would actually look massive on him. But yeah, dual modded mid legs, and then just some very simple chest printing. That's why we can get the figure count here so high, because we've got no arm and no leg printing at all. Next up, we have the Dark Knight, again the level 1 variety, who's using some printing on the breastplate here, but nothing on the torso, purely in black. It's got some arm printing, just because otherwise the figure would look a little simple, although I really do think this could be sort of removed and not included. The shoulder pads I chose not to give him, I chose to give him the breastplate instead to give him that more bulky shaping, and because it actually has kind of this almost small shoulder element, and I didn't do a custom molded head because sort of like little bits that coming off the side kind of resemble the horns, and I think the mold budget is kind of fairly too limited, and this looks close enough. Again, mid legs, and then a dark red 4-long bar and an axe handle in order to recreate his weapon of choice. This again, all the enemy choices here are iconic to the first dungeon, so they kind of had to be here. Going back to Heroes though for a minute, we have Tri, who is using the wishing star piece from the Disney Wish line, recolored here into light yellow. It is a perfect piece recolor. Lego recolor this piece for Tri and for Makar, please, immediately. Just resting on actually the same stand that was used for the wishing star, which is 2 1x1 transparent clear cylinders and a 2x2 trans clear dish as well. This piece is perfect. Lego recolor. What are you doing? What are you doing? We also have Luberry on the good side, who is a character you meet in those early portions of the game straight after the dungeon, and he is here again, very simple printing with just his apron and then a tan basic torso. He looks way too simple, but this character style really doesn't translate very well to figures, which is what I'm learning. He's actually using a moustache piece in white just to give it a little bit more of an accent, and he is bold here because there is no hairpiece. That even the pigtails, I tried the double pigtail hairpiece, didn't really fit very well because he is completely bold. So without a custom molded piece and a limited budget to provide it, given how much else is going on in this set, I chose to skip and make him bold, which is perfectly recognizable and I'm absolutely fine with. Back to villains, we have the brick built character of the set, and that is Ganon, who I'm really pleased with how he took out, specifically the shoulder pads, which are, don't have spikes, but are making great use of this shell element. He should probably have a cloth cape element, but didn't include it for the set. He's actually using big fig fists, which then go into normal brick built arms. Again, you could probably use big fig arms, but one they actually weren't on Studio, which did surprise me, which kind of limited my choices, but also I kind of like the angle I was able to get by using a minifig opposer piece for his elbow joint. His spear here recreates really well with the sort of triple bladed elements, and then a 1x2 tile for his eye prints. We have the level 1 Deku Baba, which again is actually using the construction shield elements for armor to recreate the jaw here, which actually works really well for this cartoony version of a Deku Baba. You lose the petals around the back so that we can get the clips to work, but make up with it the legs around the base. The only reason it doesn't have a fourth petal around the back is just because it wouldn't fit underneath. So yeah, we've got a ball joint for articulation, and of course you can open and close the mouth, and a figure would fit inside, which I know this one doesn't eat its prey whole, but it fits well enough anyway. Next up we have the Zol, which is a 1x1 piece, and this actually marks the first time that we are doing a chew-like enemy not in the Wind Waker style. So hip hip hooray for you that don't like when I use the Wind Waker chew in other games, and that is purely because the Zol is just a blob, and the closest to a blob piece outside of a Technic Ball, which we're using for Try's Friends, and I wanted something bigger, is this 2x2 piece, and really I was just inspired by Z-Blob here from the Dreams line, and he has a very similar eye print here, and you get 2 of them in the set. And then we have Try's Friends, which are, as mentioned, 1x1 Technic Balls. These are recreating the things that you find in the rifts. All of them have different eye prints, except for the ones in this set are the same print, because we are not wasting 3 printing molds on doing 3 unique ones when we can just do the same one and you can just rotate it in different orientations, which is what I've done in every image in this set. You get 3 for the 3 hiding spots, and I like this inclusion because it adds a puzzle element to an already kind of packed play set, which is really nice, yeah. And that is the full set. As I was just touching on, actually, I really like this one for how many different aspects of the game it actually brings over. Not only have you got that contrast between normal world and Rift, and also how cool and MC Escher kind of styled the stuff in the Rifts look, but the fact that you can build and customize it to make your own terrain without it feeling too boring because you can do this wacky terrain is actually really interesting. Upon that, I like the platforming element with the echoes and sort of building your own stuff. To me, it does feel very similar to Ultra Hand, although I won't be treating it like I did for Ultra Hand in the other Tears of the Kingdom sets. I like that it gives you this introduction, and also the reason I chose to do Southern and not another region for this is because I felt that that base region was, while fairly plain, actually quite iconic and quite detailed in a way that I really enjoyed. So that is why I chose this region. I think it translates to a set really well, and I love having the elements like the pillars and the trees and the sort of angled sections as well. I think that's a lot of fun, and it also just suits it being the beginning of the game because of the Ganon encounter very early on as well, and of course Evil Link too. So really makes a lot of sense from that. But I also do love the mystery aspect. So not only have you got the rebuilding and the platforming, but you've got the dungeon crawling aspect in some ways, but also the Try's Friend is like a little mystery quest. Like, yeah, there are only 3 locations, but it's just an entire other dimension of play, which didn't need to be here. And I just love it when I'm able to cram stuff in like that. It probably is almost a top tier set, like very high. I love it the way it is, not quite into Firstborn Child, I feel, but maybe that will happen with time. But yeah, really played with this as a first Echo set. I love how much of the game's essence it captures, and there will totally be more coming. So let me know what you thought of this and the little creative concept that we were able to come up with. I am particularly proud of this, so let me know what you think down below. I do promise you it's stable too, and yeah, I'd like to get instructions for those Ganons maybe one day, but we'll see. Anyway, leave your thoughts down below, and I will see you again very soon with another video. Take care everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye.